Hello, 8th grade Morris science students. Today we are going to begin the life science section. Now you will notice that there is a life science exam 1 from molecules to organisms notes outline, and you need to take notes in that Google Docs while I lecture over these slides. So we're going to move into our life science section, and we're going to kind of discuss how you start off with atom and move up to an organism, and what exactly does it mean to be an organism. All living things are made of cells. There are 5 main categories or kingdoms that all of living things belong to. So you either have an animal, so this would be like people, dogs, bugs, sharks, or you have a plant, things like trees, flowers, seaweed, shrubs. Or you have a fungus, like mushrooms, yeast, mold, penicillin. Penicillin is or any antibiotics, they all come from molds. So those are like safe for us to take to fight off bacteria. They would belong to the fungus kingdom. Then there is protista or the protists. These are single-celled organisms. And this green amoeba that you see here, this would be a single-celled organism. Another kingdom would be Monera, which is the bacteria kingdom. Things like Streptococcus, which causes strep throat, and also E. coli belong to that kingdom. So all living things are made of cells, and all living things belong to one of these 5 kingdoms. An organism is something that possesses the 6 characteristics of life. The 6 characteristics of life are the processes that all organisms or living things must be able to carry out. This is how you determine if something is a living organism or not. First, they have to consist of 1 or more cells. They must sense and respond to change or homeostasis. Reproduce. Now, they may not reproduce, but they have to have the ability to reproduce. They have to have DNA. They have to use energy. They use energy by taking in food and being able to convert that to energy that we can use to carry out life's processes. They also have to be able to grow and develop. In order for something to be an organism, to be considered alive, it has to possess all 6 characteristics of life. Organisms can be unicellular, which means that they have just 1 cell, but they can also be multicellular. Humans would be a multicellular organism. Unicellular organisms would be things like bacteria. And what it means is that they have only 1 cell, and that 1 cell can carry out all the processes of life. So that 1 cell can live on its own, and it can function. It can reproduce. It responds to stimuli. It has DNA. Things like algae, protozoas, bacteria, all of those things are unicellular organisms. A multicellular organism means that it has to have more than 1 cell in order to be able to function. It can't just have the 1 cell on its own and survive. It has to have more than 1 cell in order for it to carry out the life processes. Things like animals, plants, fungus. Humans, we are animals, but we would fall into the multicellular organism category. The word biotic, that just means that it contains life. Anything that is alive is a biotic organism. The atom is the smallest particle that cannot be divided. That word atom used to mean or means unable to divide. And a long time ago, they thought that an atom could not be broken down. Now we know that an atom can be broken down, but once you break it in half, it's no longer that atom. Instead, it becomes positive protons, negative electrons, and neutral neutrons. Now, an atom is the smallest particle that makes up living and non-living things. It's the smallest particle of all matter. An element means that you have atoms, but they are only 1 type. So like if you have the element carbon, that means all the atoms are carbon. If you have the element hydrogen, that means all of the atoms are hydrogen. A compound is where you get more than one element combined to form a substance. So like if you had carbon plus hydrogen plus oxygen, you get sugars. If you have hydrogen and oxygen mixed in a specific way, you would have water. So a compound means that you have more than one element that is chemically combined. The cell theory. The cell theory consists of 3 parts. All organisms are composed of 1 or more cells. These cells are the basic unit of all life, of all living things. And all cells have to come from a pre-existing cell. We don't just spontaneously generate. We just don't appear. We come from cells from our parents, cells from a previous generation. And all cells can be put into 2 categories. They're either a prokaryotic cell or a eukaryotic cell. A prokaryotic cell has no nucleus. This would be cells like bacteria, very simple. They're not complex. There's not a lot to them. Eukaryotic cells are very complex. They do have a nucleus, and this is all other types of cells. One of the ways that I remember the difference between prokaryotic and eukaryotic cells is I think no. Prokaryotic cells have no nucleus. Eukaryotic cells are like you and I. Eukaryotic cells have a nucleus. As animals, as containing animal cells, our cells have a nuclei inside of them. So you have a nucleus. This is an example of a bacteria cell. Remember that bacteria cells are prokaryotic, so they have no nucleus. They have no membrane-bound organelles. They are very simple, very few organelles, very few structures. They also have circular DNA. Next, we have the animal cell. An animal cell is eukaryotic. It does have a nucleus. It does have a membrane-bound organelle. If you look at the difference between the bacteria cell and the animal cell, you'll see that that bacteria cell was very simple. The animal cell is much more complex. There are several different organelles in this cell, and it also has the nucleus. And inside the nucleus, it has DNA. The DNA of an animal cell is linear, so it's made in lines or what we'll later look at as chromosomes. The next type of cell is a plant cell. Plant cells are much like animal cells, but they do have a few differences. A plant cell is eukaryotic. Remember, you and I have a nucleus. So it does have a nucleus. It does have membrane-bound organelles, just like the plant cell. It does have linear DNA. But plant cells are a little bit different. They have chloroplasts that have chlorophyll. Chloroplasts are green. It's what gives the plant its green color. Chloroplasts contain chlorophyll, which the chlorophyll allows the plant to absorb energy from the sun. The chlorophyll and the chloroplasts are what allow the plant to be able to make its own food. Plant cells also have a cell wall. Cell walls give the plant cell an extra layer of protection. It helps it with extreme temperatures because we all know plants live outside. So it helps it when it's really rainy or when it's not rainy enough to control the amount of water. It has a large vacuole where it can store water or it can release water based on what the environment is like and what it needs. Now, in order for cells to be able to carry out the life processes, you have to be able to move things inside and out of the cell. So cells must have a semi-permeable membrane. And that word semi-permeable means that it allows some things to pass through the cell and it keeps other things out. So it lets the things that the cell needs to come in, but it tries to keep out the things that are bad for the cell or bad for living organisms. The word diffusion is the movement of substances. So this could be like the movement of vitamins, the movement of salt and sugar. And it keeps things basically based on concentration, like does it need more sugar, does it need less sugar? And it will allow things to pass in and out of the cell wall. Now, the other thing is osmosis. Osmosis is strictly just the movement of water. And our cell membranes are made so that they can regulate how much water we need inside the cell and how much water we need outside of the cell. So the water will move back and forth based on concentration. Now we're going to go ahead and stop there for now, and then we will continue tomorrow. Thank you. Make sure you get all of your notes down.